You've already had a fantastic 2025 so far. Lots of top three finishes, lots of wins. How does it feel to be in this position just a few months out from the World Championships?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, for a World Championships being so late, it can be the challenge of athletes and coaches to find how do we make the program right so that you are exactly where you need to be. You're not getting tired by the end of the year, but also you're not underperforming. So it feels great to be in a position where I can say, this is where I want to be right now.
Do you feel like you've nailed it then? Because you're right. It's you can get so excited with the start of the season that you can almost just get carried away with it and not have anything left in the tank. But do you feel like you and your coach have got that balance then?
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for improvement. Of course, you want to do a personal best every competition. So when I haven't had a PB this year, it's a bit like, oh, it'd be nice. But I think from where we are, we've been trying out a few different things. For example, I never come back to Australia in July. This is the first July I've had in a long time. So we've given ourselves grace because we're trying all these new things. And I think that's really important actually for preparing a season is to just give yourself a bit of grace, and that seems to work. And then I think, why don't I do this to myself more, like rather than put the pressure on.
Yeah.
Is that a post Olympic thing then, Nicola, to say, we do work in Olympic cycles, and then do you feel like this year you want to be a bit kinder to yourself, you want to take a step back, and has that long season help with that sort of mindset?
Yeah, definitely. I think we like to think in Olympic timeframes, but you put in so much effort when it's the Olympic year, and the whole world understands when you say, I'm training for the Olympics. You can get away with basically anything as an athlete. And then Olympics is over, and then all of a sudden people don't have that kind of understanding. But for myself, I was so used to putting in that extra bit of effort, that becomes the new norm. So you have to purposely do less, to underdo it, which isn't a part of my nature. So rather than, I suppose, putting less effort in, it's just putting different focuses on different areas. So like for example, usually with the athletic season in Australia, we start competing in January. So always as soon as it gets to January 1st, it's like this mindset for most athletes in Australia that now it's time to start focusing and nailing in. And I had to purposely hold off for that and go, no, like, you can't be this focused on January 1st when September 18th is your qual for the world champs. So I've had to almost like pull in the reins and go, okay, just focus on executing that training session really well, but don't think of competition yet.
So how does it look right now then, Nicola, in terms of you saying you've gone back to Australia for the first time in July? You're having to take your foot off the gas a little bit. So what does the next few months look like then as you try and build back towards Tokyo?
Yeah, I had almost a week off after my last competition in the Czech Republic. Went and saw some castles, did some hiking. I was having great times, and then came back to Australia and had a few days off, which usually I train no matter what. I'm there training in the airport, in the layovers. I'm training before the flight. I train directly after, but I've gotten a lot of advice to try and rest, not train so much, and that seems to have worked. So I had a week off, and then this week that I'm in right now is building up with transitions. So just doing really general training. I haven't seen a track since I last competed, just training on the beach and, training in like the open fields, that kind of thing. And to give myself that mental break so that when I go back to the proper training that I'm doing next week, it feels like I've had a long time off and I want to build up rather than try and hold on until September.
Your performances over the last few years have been epic. Like, you've barely been outside of the top three in any competition in the last few years. Is that, having that consistency, does that give you the confidence to have this more relaxed approach? Can you be a bit more confident in your ability and say, you know what, I don't need to chase. I can just back off a little bit and freshen up?
Yeah, I mean, even without the rankings of where I am and where I need to be, I think the season is long, and the more I'm doing the sport, the more I realize that you have to say no to so much in order to say yes to the right things. The amount of things that you have to say no to, I mean, even I'm missing out on the London Diamond League this year, which we've never had, like I've never competed in. So that was a big thing for me to go, oh, but I'm saying no to that because I'm saying yes to being 100% ready for the World Championships. And so I think I've learned like to put different value on different things. Like what's going to be more important in the end of the year when I look back? Is it going to be saying yes to all of these amazing competitions, but only maybe coming fifth or sixth in them, or showing up sharp and doing the very best that I can and performing when I need to perform? So like that takes a bigger yes, so I can say no to other things.
Can I ask how you built into the season? Because in Nanjing, I commentated on that final where you won it. Obviously, you retained the gold medal, but you had no competition really at all going into the World Indoors, whereas Yaroslava Mahuchik, Eleanor Patterson, Angelina Topic, they'd all pretty battle-hardened and had a big indoor season. You come in, victory straight away, 197. How do you do that?
Yeah, you know what? That was great. Like that was not expected. Let's just say that. I've always had a good first competition back historically. Like if you go through all the records, the amount of personal bests I've done after a 3 or 4 month break and just doing training has been it's been quite consistent. So I know that I can time it right, that if I'm in really good shape, just bubble wrap me and take me to the World Championships. But I went in again and I wanted to do something exciting and different, because if high jump doesn't become exciting for me, I don't get the best out of myself. And so turning up to a World Champs, thankfully I'd qualified through the Brussels Diamond League of jumping 197, so I had the automatic qualifier. The excitement of thinking, well, why don't we open at a World Championships? That just I think my coach lost about 10 years of his life when I suggested that. But it was exciting. It went, wow, okay, let's try something new. And it worked, and that's great. But I was also willing to lay down the World Indoors because I really wanted to be ready for the World Outdoors. So that kind of, potentially it was going to be chaotic and I didn't clear a bar, but I knew that that wasn't going to jeopardize the rest of the season. It was just going to prepare me to take risks and to be courageous when things are on the line. And because I did that and it turned out to be gold, and it turned out to be a good height, it then gave me confidence then for the rest of the season to go, well, if something is risky and something's exciting, then you need to go for that, because that's what it's all about.
Well, it worked out very well for you. And kind of similar in Glasgow as well, because I was looking at your preparation for Glasgow when you won gold. Again, no indoor season, 2 events outdoors though. It's a different kind of competition, isn't it, in terms of competing indoors and outdoors? Do you find any major differences? I mean, you took to it like a duck to water anyway, so obviously it's pretty simple for you to just transition and go straight to the indoors and win something. That was pretty special.
You know, I think I would do really well indoors. Like outside of a World Indoors, I think I'd love to do an indoor season and just see how high I can go. But yeah, I think the indoors surface works really well for a very powerful athlete. So because I'm more power than speed, my run-up transfers nicely to it. The reason why I didn't do indoors was because I have so many weeks away competing elsewhere, and for me to travel and compete indoors, you have to then go with the time zone, the climate's different, and then the winter block that I really need to build so that I'm ready for the outdoor season is in that time period. So the World Indoors was sort of that nice in between of, look, we can still go over there, the training will decrease, but let's just take that as a taper and then jump at a World Championships, rather than potentially miss weeks and weeks and weeks of hard training and then potentially I have a great indoor season. Then the national championships is directly after Worlds, and then you have the Diamond League, and that, you know, so it's yeah, if I was to do a big indoor season and have the same amount as all the other girls, I just know myself and my body that I wouldn't be able to perform when I need to in the outdoor season.
So from an athlete's point of view, you're sitting there in Australia during that indoor season, say this year in February, and you're watching everyone jump high and you're not involved. And then now as well, you're taking the decision to go back home, which sounds like a great decision. How do you deal, though, with that mentality of watching your competitors go out there and perhaps jump big? You know, what if someone jumps big this month? Like, what does that do to you when you're sat at home?
Yeah, I mean, you have to get over the fear of missing out as an athlete, because you always have so much opportunity. It's great because sport is that healthy right now that pretty much anywhere in the world from January to September, you're going to find a competition somewhere. But you have to also know how to say no to things. So like right now, I really just focus on other parts of my life. Like I know that I'm so much more than an athlete. And so, you know, coming home and I'm the daughter, like I'm the wife, you know, I'm here like cooking apple crumbles, like, you know, while the Diamond League's going on, you know, I just embrace that time because you miss that when you're on the circuit. On the circuit, it's not like you miss those big things like, you know, the smell of Australia, or just like, you know, Australian accents, or being able to speak English. It's like the really little things that I miss of just, you know, a Sunday afternoon at home with my family and the sounds of birds in Australia, like all that kind of thing. So when I'm overseas, I try to embrace it and take on all of the beautiful things of what the athlete circuit does. But then when I'm back home, I can transition nicely. And I think I learnt that a lot, especially when I was 20 years old. I came to that decision that my identity couldn't be in sport anymore. Like I had to find out who I was outside of a competitor and an athlete, because when my identity was wholly fixed on an athlete, moments like that of standing on the sidelines and seeing other people jump high would be overwhelming. And the height that I would jump, like a personal best, that bar could never ever be high enough to fill the value that I needed in my heart. So I know a lot of young athletes, I've met them, and a lot of them measure themselves compared to other people, and comparison is so big. So they'll compare and think. I had 2 conversations with 2 athletes in different countries in Europe this season, and they were 18 and 19 years old, and they said, yeah, I've already missed my chance to make it in athletics because I haven't made the Diamond League yet. And I just sort of started laughing. I was like, you're 18. But yeah, they've seen the great juniors that have performed, and they've just gone, well, I'm not that, so I'm not doing enough. And I asked this question to them. I said, do you know who you are outside of your sport? Like, do you know like what you like to do? Do you know the value that you have? And they couldn't give me an answer. And at that age, I wouldn't have been able to give them an answer too. So it's like discovering why you're in sport and who you are outside of that, I think elevates you in the competition, but then also grounds you and allows you to be consistent outside of it too. So you can weave between that high performance athlete to then being like a homebody, like within a day, you know, it helps.
Well, I think it's a good opportunity here then, Nicola, to sort of go back a bit and sort of find out a bit more about you as a person, really, and how you got to this point. So if we sort of go back to your origins in the sport, first of all, for those that don't know, how did you get into the sport? And did you always were you always such a talented junior that you felt like you were destined for the top? Were you one of those people, maybe a teenager, who thought, I need to get to this point by that sort of age, like you were just talking about with the conversations you had?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was born, I was the longest baby born in my hospital. So I was just tall. Like I stopped growing at 14. So what you see is what you get. I've been this tall for 14 years now. And so because of that and being so tall, people would automatically in my region say, like, why are you so tall? And as a kid, you can't give an answer, but like, do you do basketball? Do you do something with that height? And so you can imagine my delight when I discovered high jump. And in my local club, I was good. Like, I would just fall over the bar and I'd break the club record. It was really easy. And so I was so uncoordinated. So every sport I was bad at, like every single one. But high jump, I excelled in. So it was easy to choose. So at 8 years old, I remember I asked my manager, what's the best high jump performance an Australian woman has ever done? And my age group manager, who sort of looked after all the kids, they said 1 meter 98. And I said, I'm going to jump 2 meters one day. And I'm going to go to the Olympics. And then I did a bit of research and I was like, I'm going to be in Europe. Yeah, by the time I'm 18, I can just leave school and just start my athlete career. I had all of these ideas at such a young age. But unfortunately, I wasn't as good as I thought I was at that age because I was so uncoordinated and gangly. But I suppose the love started at 8 years old when it came to high jump, and it was easy to choose that as my sport because there wasn't many other options going around for me. So that was easy.
And then you got your first major medal at the 2018 Commonwealth Games at home, which must have been an incredible moment for you. And again, going back to the conversations you were just saying you were having with the 18, 19-year-olds, you were older than that when you got your first medal, right? So
yeah.
Was that the moment that you felt like you really belonged on that international stage?
Yeah, I mean, my first junior team was World Juniors in 2014, and I didn't make the final, and I was almost certain I would. And so that was hard for me at 17 years old because, again, I had this big life plan for myself. All right, get a medal at World Juniors, then you'll get picked up by a sponsor, then you'll be jumping 190s, you'll get onto the European circuit. Like, I had it all figured out apart from my performances to match that. And so then, as an 18-year-old, I was blessed to be jumping with a great group of Australian high jump women. I mean, I had Eleanor in my age group from when I was a teenager. So ever since I started high school, I was jumping with her, and she was just this like trailblazer. Like, everything that she did was a national record. And then she jumped the world youth record, like at the same competition that I was competing in. And so because she was like 20 centimeters higher than me, it wasn't, I was just, people were like, oh, that's Nicola, just, sort of on the side there. But it was great to see what was possible in Australia and to see that, but then also not be too overwhelmed when I did end up going overseas and people were jumping 10 centimeters higher than me, because that was just the norm for me. Like, I had to learn how to embrace second and third and fourth place and be happy with it, because I wasn't that standout junior. And then it got to 20 years of age and I was in a position where I was training in Europe. I had these access and open doors, and yet when I was there and it was sort of everything I'd ever dreamed of, I realized that I didn't want it anymore. Like, I just found that I'd fought so hard for it and I still had that identity in my sport. And I came to that end and that conclusion of how long am I going to stay and continue with this mindset in sport? Like, is this all that there is? And I decided that I couldn't continue anymore, and I really considered whether to just give up sport altogether and just do something else completely different. And it really was, I just prayed and I just said, God, where do you want me? And he said, you need to be back in sport. And I was like, what? But I just tried, for 12 years. And he's like, yeah, but don't do it your way, do it my way. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I just decided that I had to discover who I was outside of my sport. So really started digging deep of just like, okay, well, what is my identity? Like, who am I? And as soon as I found out who I was, I went back into sport with like a new fire, and the heights didn't change, but yet I felt like I had so much more to give. And because I had more to give, I'd turn up to my sport and my training facility, but I had a new heart and I had a new mindset. And so going into that, I ended up jumping 190 at 20 years of age, and I made my first world championships. And so I think that's sort of where I went onto the qualifying round, and I was so underprepared. Like I got the last spot, last call up, went to London, and then I came dead last. I didn't even make the starting. I no hided. But yet I could stand out there and think I've got a front row seat of the best competition in the world. And I didn't feel overwhelmed like I didn't belong. Like, I really felt like I was just one of them. But I knew that I had to do more, more training and change a lot of things. By the time I was 21 at a home Commonwealth Games, I think because I'd figured out who I was and that I belonged there, even when I came last place, and I still had a part to play in influencing the culture and influencing athletics, especially back home. When I went and I started getting onto the podium and eventually getting medals, I discovered that before the medals. So I knew that regardless or not if I jump 2 meters or I come last place, I still know that I give a lot to the sport outside of that.
I think it's so wonderful that you have figured that out, because I think there's athletes that go through their whole career and never figure that out. And we see them on the circuit, don't we, beating themselves up, not taking any joy from it. And for you to have figured that out at such a young age is great. But like, how hard is that? Is it always constant, or do you find yourself wavering away from that kind of keeping perspective and keeping a vision of who you are away from competition? When it gets close to a competition and you're under pressure, is that tested, or do you feel like it's a really solid sort of belief you have?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think in competition, I've really created a community of people that keep me accountable. Like, really, like, if I feel like the competition's getting to my head, I have people that will speak over me. It's like, no, Nicola, this is who you were before you started getting successful, and this is who you want to be. And being vulnerable and transparent to people around you, I think that's like such a gift. Like, because as an athlete, you have to do that when it comes to physical training, right? Or even mental, but just like you as a person, like where your heart's at, having people to help you on the path is important. And I really think like my sport competition gives an opportunity for me to be tested in that, like, where is your belief at? Like, we're testing the foundation right now, especially, it's the Olympic final, third attempt, 2 meters, like, what's going through your head right now? Like, that's pressure, like, and a foundation requires pressure in order to test it. And so, like, even with my beliefs and even with my faith, I feel like sport has been one of the best things for it, because I can truly say under pressure, like, I haven't wavered from it. It's just gone deeper. And the people around me have seen that. And if it stops, like, if it stops growing, or it stops becoming, like, if my face just becomes secondary rather than central to who I am, I've like invited people onto that process. It's like, hey, never let me lose sight of this, okay? Like, and they're really faithful to make sure that they keep pulling me along. So 8 years so far on the pro circuit, and it just keeps on getting better. Like, it's not a distraction. It's not something that's like thinned out. It's just gotten stronger and richer and deeper.
Who are those people then? Who are those people that you draw on for that support?
Yeah, and also, just to add that to that as well, to Hannah's question, are those people not necessarily always people who also share the same faith as you, but encourage you to make sure that you...
Yeah, I mean, yes to both. So to answer your question, Rich, like, people, I mean, my team, right? My team, like, I've built up for years and years, about 8 years, and my core team will talk to me each day, and they'll be really strong in, like, they're they create my training programs, but also they'll watch me compete. And they might say, like, hey, Nick, like, you lost your joy when you attempted 204, and you can see it. And then in your performance, like, what was going on here? So I've like given them access in that way. But then outside of that, like, I have a whole group of athletes as well that, we're away on the circuit for so long. So usually, like, a church community that you have at home that might message you and stuff we don't always have that, especially when you're competing for months at a time. And so I have a group of athletes and we gather together and, you know, we do church together. And for me, like, as well as being a leader in that space, people will look to me not only to be a role model, but to speak into their lives. And it has to be two ways, like to give advice as an athlete. Like, I want to receive advice from another athlete as well. So we have like athletes and chaplains that have helped me on the circuit, and to the point where I'm so close with a lot of my chaplains that I've met through world championships or Olympics that I stay at their house, and like, you know, like it's ended up being more like family than anything. They've been ones to help mentor me and grow me, because they know that like wherever I go, there's going to be a lot of people impacted. So they're just like, it's nice to always have somebody to mentor you and to be in that space, because you can mentor other people. People can look to you. Like, I know every time I go out, and even to the local supermarket, like, people are watching me. It's a bit weird because I'm from like a local region, right? I'm not like from a big city. And so there's just people watching all the time, and it can feel completely overwhelming, like, to be under the spotlight, like, so much. But yeah, when you have other people that are speaking into you, like, you don't mind the spotlight, like, you don't mind being under pressure or even under the test, because in the end you're learning stuff about yourself, and then you can bring that as well to other people and go like, hey, this random emotion came up, or like this thing, like, let's talk about that, let's pray about that, like, what is that? So I've always had these like great communities wherever I am. And I got told by someone that I can't even remember now, but they said, like, if you want to be a part of community and it's not there, build it. So like, build that community. And I think in sport and in track and field, that's something that I really long to do, is like, look, if there's a space or there's a community that I've longed to be a part of, especially on the road, and it's not there, let's build it. Like, let's encourage people. If people have faith, even if they don't have faith, like, let's mentor them, you know, like, let's like build this community so that when I'm leaving it, I'm leaving a legacy of creating paths where potentially it was just empty, so that people can keep doing that.
You've mentioned a few times, Nicola, about how you sort of completely changed your mindset. You're almost talking about an old Nicola and a newer Nicola, from that moment where you really started to question yourself and whether you should be in the sport, and you completely changed everything. So how quick was that process for you? What was the light bulb moment for you that changed everything?
Yeah, that's good. I would say it was a gradual process. Like, between when I was like 19 to 20, there was a space where finished school, changing university degrees, training gets harder, life starts changing, I start changing, and even, you know, like, there was just this one point where I was overseas and I was in a relationship with someone that I'd met actually at World Juniors, and then we just started becoming completely different people. But yet I was so fixated on, well, if I remain in this relationship, I'm going to get access to like the lifestyle and things that I've always dreamed of. But yet I'm changing, and I can't deny that, right? And so it came at a cost of deciding, like, I'm going to start changing as a person to who I believe I was always meant to be. But yet I was like, from 18 to 20 in that phase that took years to actually take that on and go, yes, like, this is me. And it came at a cost of losing it, like losing relationship, losing connections, losing potential access to a life that I'd always dreamed of. And when I started deciding, if I'm willing to lose my dream to start becoming the person of who I was meant to be, well, do I want sport? Like, do I want it if it isn't the way that I planned my life to be? Like, do I want sport if it doesn't include the Olympics? Like, you know, like, these big questions. That time, I would say it was a bit like testing, because it caused me to go, like, when you lose something for the sake of your beliefs, it becomes so personal to you, and you go like, and I'm so happy actually that I was put in that situation at that age. Like, I'm so happy, like, look back and people go like, that's really hard, like, I wouldn't want that. But for me, I think that, I would say, slingshotted me forward to going, well, if you're giving up like X, Y, and Z, like, if you're giving up all of that to pursue this, like, what is this really worth? And for me, it was like this was my faith in God that tried to, was real trialed. It wasn't something naturally that came to me as a teenager. It came more when I was 20 years of age, and I was faced with, is sport and my dreams worth laying down just to discover more about this faith in who God is? And I discovered that it was worth that. And because of that, when I went back into sport, the results no longer had a hold on me. So I would say it was a matter, like, when I finally let go and surrendered, surrendered those dreams, surrendered my life plan, and just said, all right, Jesus, you're number one. What's happening now? I would say within a matter of a month, my life, I was a different person. I wish there was footage of me jumping before 20 years of age. You would see my face. Sheer terror would be looking, right before I jumped. No joy. And I mean fear. Afraid of disappointment, afraid of missing the bar, afraid of being in the spotlight. You list it. And then, I would say a few months later, you just look at me and I'm having the best time. I'm like, let's get the crowd involved. I'm jumping 170, I'm not jumping high. But the fear no longer had a hold on me because I'd surrendered it. And I'd gone you know what? Because I was willing to lose, I've gained something that I'll never lose.
Sorry, you're quite late to your faith though, weren't you, Nicola? Is that right? When you were more of a sort of older teenager, is that correct? I mean, it's a very different process. I came from a church family that was going to church from a kid through to my teenage years, and I started to, if I'm being completely honest with you, I started to sort of resent having to go to church every week because I was missing out on everything else that all my friends were doing at the weekends. Whereas so I probably drifted away. Whereas you found it sounds like a lot later, and you're able to you're in control of your life a lot more. So you're able to make decisions yourself. Is that kind of how it worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a Christian school from when I was 12 years of age. And I think that's when I started being really curious and being like, wow, this is crazy. I remember the first day of school, I was 6 foot in 12 years of age. Could you imagine walking into a brand new school? And I was just getting ready to be ostracized because I was so tall, that my skirtlet was longer than most people in my class. I was just so different, and I knew it, right? But yet they loved on me. And I was like, why would people love me when I know I'm a bit of a freak right now? And they said, we love because Jesus loves us. And that really impacted me. And I would say, and I've started digging deep into my faith, but I had no foundation. So sport was still number one. And so if it was between God and sport, sport would take the cake. And that was just the way it was. And because of that, because when my priorities weren't number one, number two, they were all over the place, I found that the foundation really wasn't there. And it wasn't until later on, in my teenage years, when I think leaving school's a big thing of who am I going to be? What person am I going to be? And being curious and discovering that. But sport was still if anybody saw me at a university, I'd be wearing a sports tracksuit, and that was just who I was. My community, my friends, all sports people, that's who I wanted to be. But yeah, I'd say my faith was a lot later. And my husband, he grew up in a church family, church planting. So really he was in church all the time as a kid, and his story is different to mine because, again, that kind of resentment that came with church, and it wasn't his thing, it was his family's thing. So having to be there, it wasn't until he was 18 that he came to a point where he's like, I just can't do it anymore. I can't be that person in that I have to be band member and things. And then God just really just started speaking to him and said, finally, you've stopped trying, let's just do it together now. And it changed his life, and he got completely transformed. I mean, my husband and I, we met when I was 16, he was 18. We couldn't have been two more different people, like completely opposite, like in every single way. Not even friends, right? Like completely opposite. But yet, when we both had that transformation, it wasn't until like years later that we came back, and like, you know, I was in Australia, he was in Australia at a certain point, and we met, and it was like perfect, you know. But is that transformation happened in both of us, and it changed us for the better. But it was something that you had to make your own. Like if it's just your family's thing, or if it's just your community's thing, or even cultural. Like if a belief is just cultural, you're not going to be willing to lose things for it. But you know, when it gets time, when there is that potential loss, I think that's when you start really questioning, okay, like what is important to me? And that's sort of what happened to both of us.
Oh, it's lovely to hear those insights, Nicola. They're so really interesting. I want to go back to when you were talking about the joy when you jump and your team noticing when that joy isn't there. You are a very energetic, enthusiastic competitor. How do you manage that energy across a competition? Because you can be out there for a long, long time. How do you manage those emotions?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, these past couple of competitions really tested me, I would say, because Paris, we were jumping. I think I started jumping at 10:30 at night or something. Like that was really late.
Mm-hmm.
I'm well in bed by then, so
yeah, they love their late sport in France. Everything starts really late.
Yeah. And then we had the last competition I did was in the Czech Republic, and there was 17 women in this shopping center car park, and it was a long competition, really long. So I've been trying to manage, I would say, my giving my all for competitions. I've tried to start skipping heights because my endurance isn't quite there. I've noticed that if my heart isn't in it, you know, if I'm not excited to jump and like my heart's not in it, don't bother attempting. Like it's not going to end well for you. And so I've had to be learning that, because again, it's like a thin line between me as a person, the joy, like I really like joy is such an important part of jumping. Like it's something that if you can't enjoy it, like if you're trying it to just be focused and just go for it and, you know, be that kind of raw grit and just jump it, I find that I'm so mechanical and nothing works because I overthink everything. When I just go off the joy that I experience when I'm jumping, when, you know, I get reminded a lot of my younger self and how fearful I was, and realizing that I have no fear because this love is inside of me. Man, the joy just comes out and it's just this overflow. But if I don't have time to remind myself of that before my attempts, and it's just getting rushed, my team can just tell. And so I've had to figure out, okay, potentially skipping heights. If my heart's not there, all right, skip. It's like, it's 199. I'm like, I'm skipping. Like, let's just go to 201, you know?
How many years does that knock off your coach's life when you do that?
Every time, I don't tell him, hey, I just let him figure it out. Because if he goes, he'd be like, Nicola, no. I'm like, it's fine. Yeah, it is a good question, because I find that I have to really be monitoring what I'm doing outside of my sport as well. So outside of sport, like, you know, one of my chaplains, she's really big on, she's like, how's your soul doing? It's like, great, I went to church today. She's like, that's not your soul. You know, like deep inside, like, are you happy right now? And if it's like, no, I'm actually exhausted and I haven't done anything that's like been good for my soul. And like we found a list of just like, you know, going for a walk in nature, doing some watercolor painting, finding a piano and just having a good time, like as I play piano. Like, you know, like all of those little things. It's like you haven't called home for a bit, like let's call home. Like all of those little things. It's so interesting because all of those things, it looks like there's nothing to do with high jump, but actually like me as a person, I really rely on, like there's these little things of like having a full cup, having a full heart. I'm able then to like be on my run-up marker and just able to give that extra, even if it's that 1% can get you over the bar, because you need 100% over. Like, you know, if everything clears it apart from my ankle, it's still a missed bar. So that kind of, I think that kind of holistic, like me as a person, all right, I'm able to, like, got a full cup, okay, let's go. Like, and that's helped me stay consistent on the circuit and in my jumps.
But then what happens at 2 meters, third attempt, and you're tired and you're drained and you're like, can you fake it? Can you force it? Or does it come with that kind of pressure and opportunity?
You know what? Like, I just can't fake anything, hey? Like, I really can't. Like, I just, like, you know, when people are just like, smiling assassin, let's go. I'm like, no, like, I'm genuine. Like, it's genuine. But, like, for me, I've found, especially maybe the last 3 or 4 years, like, I think ever since my first Olympics, when I felt really tired and really stretched and really worn out, the thing that's really held me in that time isn't thinking of just like how great it would be to jump it or that kind of thing. I go back and, you know, there's this one picture of Jesus when it says that for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. And I've written that in so many of my journals, and I'm like, endurance comes with this joy, like, you know, like for the joy set before you. So even if I don't feel like it, I have this picture of him, of doing something extremely hard, like harder than I can possibly imagine, but doing it with joy because he saw it was coming. And so for me, like, I can be out there, and if I have 3 minutes, I can really go through it. You know, when I've only got like a minute or something, then it's really hard to like process this. Yes, okay, now I'm gonna jump. But when I have that 3 minutes, I can walk out there and then just be like, look, your endurance is required today. And it costs me something, but I love that it costs me something because it's like, this is my offering today. And if I don't feel like it, bad luck, you know, like, okay, you will rejoice. And then like, it's sometimes from the depths, I have to like pull it up. But you know, something even with my journal is like, those jumps when I am really tired, I'm not there writing like, you were super tired, but you know, you missed the bar, fair enough, or you made the bar, yeah. It's like, I go like, I do it and it costs me everything, and then I jump, and then sometimes I make it like I did for my previous competition, and I'm like, oh, that means another 3 attempts is open, but I don't have 3 more attempts, you know, but I don't even have that. But I go, okay, no, he's worth it. Like, this is worth being tired for right now. Like, let's go. Like, and write down, it's like, all right, what do you need to work on? What was good? What wasn't good? Just let's focus. Okay, yes, let's do it again. And so I enjoy when I feel tired, actually, because it's pulling the layers off and going deep inside of me, like, what's going to get you over the bar and to attempt it today. Like, and I go super deep in competition because I have to.
And that journal is talked about a lot, Nicola, and you're asked about it a lot. I wonder, have you always been someone that has written in a journal throughout your life? And also, I was trying to think of questions that you haven't been asked before about your journal. I wonder how much you revisit what you've written, and how much of it is for inspiration and about faith and about sort of reciting quotes from the Bible or something like that. I know you've talked about bits like that before. And how much of it's just actual, just general technical level, just God, do that better next time?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, usually, if I'm honest, 6 of the 7 days is just all technical work. You know, like what I've done for training. And then the 7th day, I usually have a day off, and then it's just watercolor painting. What have I been reading lately? Oh, that's inspirational. You better put that in there. Like, you know, I've been writing, a bit of planning. So I would say a lot of it is just my day-to-day journaling. My journal, I don't revisit it as much as you'd think. I think I love being on a long-haul flight, let's say the 14-hour ones, and I'll just bring my sports journal on with it and be like, have a read of it. Like, let's decorate it. And so I really go through it. I actually love long-haul flights for that reason. I just get so much good journaling in. Like, that's all. Like, I never have the movie screen on. No need. Just give me my pen. Sometimes my watercolor paints are all over like the seats and stuff. They're like, "Are you an artist?" I'm like, "No." They look and they're like, "Oh, okay." But no, so I do that, and I make sure after every competition, I'll go away after it. I try and do it the morning after competition. and I'll review it, and I send that review to my team. So, and I'll mark myself like a teacher of like, what did this go? Like, let's percentages, like coach interaction, athlete interaction. How was that? And it's like 83%. It's like room for improvement. You know, it's like almost HD. I do that. Like I really do. And I write it all down of what worked, what didn't work. I mean, there's like a tool of like, keep it simple. You know, what am I going to keep? What am I going to improve? What am I going to start? What am I going to stop? Like all that kind of thing. And I do that, and I love, you know what I love about it is that after a great competition, I still need to write down what I need work on. And after the worst competitions, I need to talk about what I did well. And sometimes it is so hard to write down what I've done well when I've no heighted. You know, like sometimes when you just at your starting height and then you got out and you're like, now I have to spend the time and the same effort in marking this competition as the Olympic medal competition. Like it's the exact same, but it's really, I think it's like a full circle moment, because you go back to it and the competitions where nothing went wrong, there's so many gold nuggets in there of, you know what, this needs work, and this needs work, and this needs work. Because then I'll talk to my coach and my team about it. I'll talk about how I experienced the competition. They'll give me their feedback. And then holistically, we'll all go through all of those notes, and then we'll go, you need to work on this and this and this week. And it gives us my blueprint for training for the next few days or next few months between competitions. So it's it gets reviewed, but then as soon as I know what I'm doing and I've marked it all, then it's just on to the next day. I don't tend to revisit it.
I want to talk about Matt Horsnell, your coach, and your relationship with him. When I'm on the circuit and I watch a high jump competition, he seems like the calmest guy around. He steps back a bit further. Like, you guys don't interact as much as I see other coach athletes pairing coach and athletes interact. Is that because he trusts you to analyze those jumps yourself? Yeah, like it doesn't seem like quite the typical kind of field relationship that you guys have.
Yeah, it is quite new. You know, since doing the journal in 2019, there were a few competitions that Matt couldn't be there for. So I used that journal to coach myself, and I did really well. And so then we were going, oh, okay. And so if we do interact, but if you see me compete, I'll go down, first thing I'll do, I'll write down, what do I think I need to do? And then I'll look up at my coach. I'll give him like 20 seconds to either shout or do like an arm movement or something. Is like, this is what I feel like you need to work on. And then if I'm like, yeah, that's the same as what I had, I just give him a thumbs up, and then he's like, okay. And so it's really, one thing that I love about that is that my coach, he is so technical, and if given the opportunity, he would give me more than one thing to work on for jumps, potentially 15 things. Like, you know, because he is so technical and he can just boom, 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 boom. But my way of interpreting that, it's a bit too much. And I can't, everything that he wants me to work on, I can't do. And so even in training, we really work on, I'm like, what's the arm movement for that? And so with an arm movement and like, you know, in the moment, his first response of what I need to do is usually the best. Even in training, we found the first thing that comes out of his mouth tends to be like the number one thing. And so I give him that opportunity of that window of, I want the first thing that comes out, and he does it. And every time he nails it, and I'm just like, sweet, done. And because I give that thumbs up, he's really like, I think this talks about his character. He's so humble, because so many athletes and coaches over the years have gone, wow, Nicola's rude. She doesn't go over there. She almost cuts him off. Like, you know, don't give me more. But the character of what we both have is after competition, we will talk for hours and hours and hours. Oh, and this jump, and you know, and we'll talk all about it. But I like to keep that competition really, really like succinct, and that one thing that he wants me to work on, I'll write it down, and that's it. And he's been great, and no other athletes work like that with him. Like no other athletes, and I've seen do that for their coaches, but it's great because I don't spend time walking over to the fence as well. So you think, look at all the steps that I'm saving right now.
Yeah.
To go off the bag.
And time.
time, steps. I mean, by the time I've written it, most people have gotten over a conversation, but and just to look, because in a stadium, sometimes you can't hear your coach, like your coaches. There's no, like World Indoors, he was like up on the roof there. Like
I was watching him. I was watching him when you were jumping and thinking he was so stoic, like there was nothing going on.
yeah. And then afterwards, like, and it's great. I'll look at him and our eyes lock. I have to make sure that before the competition starts, we see each other. And I'll go over to the fence then. But as soon as competition starts, I'm off limits. No one, like, like that's, if I'm going over the fence, something's wrong, so.
Conscious of your time, Nicola, because we could speak to you for ages, but I know you haven't got unlimited time. Just quickly about your what's developing into a really nice, friendly-looking rivalry between yourself and Yaroslava Mahuchik. You two couldn't be more different between your jumps. You're busy scribbling away your notebook, and Yaroslava's in her sleeping bag. But look, when she jumped 2:10 last season from a previous best of 2:04, big jump, right? When she did that, what was your reaction? And did it make you think, well, look, if she can do that, I can do something like that too?
That was such a great day. I was in between my two Ukrainian friends, high jumpers, and getting a front row seat to that was the best. I did 2:01 that day. I attempted 2:03 and it wasn't to be. She went up to 2:07 and she got it, and it was such a good jump. And it was like, when I saw Yaroslava and she went to attempt 2:10, nothing changed from 2:07. And I can't tell you how hard that is as a high jumper. Like, you can have a jump. Do you know how many people have said, with that jump over 2 meters, you can jump 2:05, 2:06, whatever. Like, so many people have said that, but it's so hard to replicate. And I looked at her and she did nothing different. Like, she moved it back maybe this much. She looked at her coach and then she looked at the bar, and it was just complete focus. And then she jumped at first attempt. And then we're there, like, we're crying, we're screaming. Well, I'm like hugging people. Like, I think I'm carrying someone. I'm like, what's going on right now? What's going on? But, I so wanted 2:10 to be done. And the way that she did it really inspired me, because I didn't know that you could have such a good competition and do, 5 centimeters on the day. Especially the higher you get, there's this thing like you'll never get higher than 1 centimeter at a time for PBs. She just like debunked all of that day. So she's just like one of the biggest inspirations for me. I mean, even though we're competitors, like I'm such a big fan. So like, when I stop jumping, I just want to be in the front row seat. I'm like, all right, show me what I need to do next. So and I believe that I've got the potential to jump a lot higher and potentially 2:10, like I have to believe that if I don't aim for 2:10, I won't get 2:04. Like, you have to aim really high. So I've learned a lot from Yaroslava, changed my run up this season as well, just by looking at her and her coach. And one of the things that I love about her as well is that no matter the success, it's still the same girl, regardless. And being at the top of the world at such a young age, she's come through and she's matured, but her humility is amazing. And so I know that, I'm not fearful of, if somebody wins out of the high jump girls and it's not me, like, what kind of role model is going to come through? I'm like, all of them are just such great role models. Like, all of them, it's like a win-win situation no matter what. So, and I think Yaroslava's really taught that. So I don't know, I'm excited for her. I'm excited for me as well, because I get to push her a bit, and we need that. We need to have good competition. The more of us that jump 2:04, the more we'll jump 2 meters, the more we'll jump 95. Like, it just sort of happens. So I'm hoping for that 2:10 jump as well. But at the same time, I feel like the world record's going to be a lot higher than 2:10 in the next few years. So we'll see.
We love watching it. And just finally, the Tokyo World Championships, that's the big one. That's what we're building towards. Couple of world indoor golds. What would it mean to you to grab one of those outdoors?
Yeah, I mean, outdoors is a whole new ball game. So, I mean, a gold medal outdoor, I think that would be incredible. It's going to take something big though. So I'm wary of, I just need to focus on jumping high, and everything else comes under that. But to be a world champion. I think even for Australia and for the person of who I've become since a little girl, I think it'd be beyond what I ever dreamed for myself.